Wanted to welcome everyone this afternoon, and we're going to start with opening prayer. If you would bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, how gracious and kind you are to us. How much you love us. You created us. You died for us, and you're coming soon to take us home. You're going to recreate us in healthy, strong bodies, and we thank you and praise you for that. And Lord, we just ask that as we start this meeting that you'll be here with us, that the presentation will show honor and glory to your name and your name only. And we thank you for hearing our prayer this afternoon. In thy name we pray. Amen.
As you already know, we're not going to have our speaker here with us because of harsh weather where he lives. But thanks to Valerie, and he also opened a schedule for Zoom recording that now we're going to see. But we're going to have some time of the live stream to make some questions and hear his answers. He will be available for that. So I really hope that this presentation, it's navigating challenges of the older adults, the infirmed, and caregiver support. I've been on both sides of the coin, and both are difficult. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what Mr. Sillero has to tell us and what God wants to bless us with today. Welcome also to the audience that is watching online, and I hope that we all enjoy this time together. Now we have the special music with Noah Marcial. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Charity Sillero. I'm a registered nurse, um, and I'll be presenting to you this afternoon the conversation entitled Navigating the Challenges of the Older Adults, the Infirm, and Those with Special Needs, and also Caregiver Support. Um, I have certifications in gerontology, ANCC, that's the board, and also certification in medical surgical nursing. And I was invited to you because of my profession in taking care of the older folks, 65 and above. Because the reason why I'm asked to talk to you is that I believe there's some anxiety and fear of the unknown. Um, if you're not a medical person and you have an autistic child, it can be overwhelming. Um, Other than lack of resources, there are some stuff that will be new to you. That's why I'll be discussing to you a lot of stuff that you can, hopefully you can pick not just one or two, but be able to have this information that to empower you. So the more you know about the population you're taking care of, whether it be older parents or children, the better you'll be as caregivers as well. And it will allay some of your fears if you pick up some stuff that's not part of your caregiving skills right now. That might not be part of the interventions prescribed by your physician. It might allay some of your fears and anxieties. So let's go back to the Word of God in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 to 6. I'm now on slide number 3. It says, Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. So, without a medical background, and you are entrusted with a child with special needs, it can be overwhelming. So, what this basically tells you in Proverbs 3 to 5 to 6 is put your confidence in God and allow Him to lead your life. Allowing God to be your guide begins with a commitment to trust in God. And the next comforting words from the Bible would be 1 John 4, verse 18. There's no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. So when you're afraid and uncertain about the future of your special needs child or the care of your parents who is advancing in age, God's love can put your fears to rest. And you must learn to accept the reality of His love for you and for them, for your parents and for your child, so that your fear will not control you. The main concern and emphasis is the stress associated with caregiving of the children with special needs and older adults. The aim of this afternoon's conversation is to help alleviate some of the fears and worries about the unknown and the future of these two vulnerable groups. Information or interventions that may be new to you, resources and caregiving techniques you may not know, or is that part of your current caregiving skills can be empowering, as I mentioned earlier. Um, as you know, you are keeping your children at home, they're not in an institution, and older folks would be able to age in place if the caregivers are empowered with more knowledge on how to take care of their special needs of the older adults as well. My disclaimer is that this afternoon discussion is a conversation. This is not, I'm not claiming to be a specialty in this area, but I definitely have 35 years nursing experience, both in long-term care and in acute. So actually, there were like 6 or 8 years that I was doing 3 to 11 at the hospital, and I would do nursing home as night shift. So I'm very well versed with what's going on in long-term care, and I actually have an assisted living facility. We have been in operation for 20 years now. So this is a conversation. It's no way intended to replace what your primary care physician ordered or prescribed treatments or plan of care for your child or for your aging parents. This afternoon's conversation is only for informational purposes. If you want medical advice or diagnosis, consult your primary care physician. So I was invited to speak in front of you based on my experience as a caregiver, bedside nurse in both the long-term care, nursing home, assisted living, and the hospital. Um, by the way, nursing home is also a rehab facility where people go for rehab if they came from the hospital. That's why it's called Nursing and Rehabilitation Center. Um, Going back, moving on to slide number 6. I have specialty in gerontology through a NCC board to have special certifications in nursing. You have to prove like my one of my two certification gerontology. I have to prove that I have like several thousands of hours taking care of the population ages 65 and above to be able to be certified in gerontology or geriatrics is the other name for that. So let's start with growth and development. Basic concept: growth and development begins with birth. As infants and children grow and mature, they pass through the stages of development. Knowledge and assessment of growth and development help the nurse, that's for me, or the social worker, to provide screening for physical and emotional problems, offer anticipatory guidance to parents and caregivers, and develop a rapport with the child to enhance the provision of healthcare and also provide education to the family to build a healthy lifestyle for the future. It is very important that parents, especially expectant mothers, to know the predictable growth and development of a child because it is through deviation from normal or expected that children are diagnosed with special needs. Unlike the obvious facial appearance of a child with a Down syndrome, autistic children appear normal at birth. Diagnoses are only made after characteristic delay in language, in movement, and cognitive skills are already obvious. After symptoms appear, such as unable to babies avoiding eye contact at age 18 months, or has difficulty following another person's gaze, or not responding to their name being called, or when they're not smiling back when they are smiled at, and not able to point at 14 months, or not babbling or making any cooing sounds by 12 months, or not a single word by 16 months. That's what? That's 1 year and 4 months, or unable to repeat words or phrases, or they're just flopping their hands, unable to, or they're rocking their body or spinning, or having intense reactions to minor changes in routine or surroundings. These later symptoms, the one I just mentioned, are typical of autistic children. So, unlike with Down syndrome, that they do immunosynthesis, so just by removing that fluid, they will be able to diagnose the unborn child that they have Down syndrome. With autistic children, they're not being diagnosed until symptoms are, and there's also no prenatal screening for autism. So you get what you get when they come out. So, but then you have to be able to know the normal growth and development of that's expected for a child, because through deviation, you will be able to seek help. They're not diagnosed. Literature differs. Previously, they said 6 out of 12 symptoms in 3 categories, but now actually it's 7 symptoms out of 3 categories that they will be diagnosed with autism. So the categories include impairments in social interaction, communication impairments, and display of characteristic behaviors, typical with autism, nonverbal stuff like that. That they don't have, they cannot maintain they cannot look at you. They don't look at you. They don't have eye contact. So things like that, or activities, especially activities typically seen with autism. So they're like rocking, or abnormal reaction to light, or they have this exaggerated, intense reaction to minor changes in their surroundings. So those are subtle signs, but you need to have 7 of those in the 3 categories: the cognitive and the communication and the social interactions, to be diagnosed with autism. description of autism. So, care of children and adults with special needs, autism spectrum disorder. It is a complex neurodevelopmental disorder. I'm now on slide 30. Neuro means in the brain. So, it's a disorder, a condition resulting in deficits in social communication and impaired social interactions. There is difficulty in understanding verbal and nonverbal communication. They would be restricted and repetitive in patterns of behavior and interest and activities. The child suffering from autism spectrum disorder start to show the developmental symptoms during early 2.5 years to 3 years old. And actually, sometimes it's extended to 4 years old as well, depending on which facility and who your specialist there will be slight differences, and they would continue thereafter until the child turns into an adult. So autism spectrum disorder associated with multiple comorbidities, which continues into adulthood as well. So my piano tuner has an autistic son who is now 31 years old. I believe he's 31 years old. And the daughter, I think, is older or maybe younger, but in the same 30s. The one who is 31 years old, autistic son, has a mental capacity of only 1.5 years old. But the sister is higher functioning. She holds a job. The only thing that you would notice that she's autistic because she talks too much. That's what the father said. But she is able to drive. She learned that skill, able to hold a job, but she can't balance her check. So her father, she's in her 30s, but her father is still helping her pay the bills and balance her check. So ASD is a lifelong developmental disability that affects how people communicate and interact with the world. It's called a spectrum because it affects people differently, and there's no one type of autism. The wide array of symptoms vary in severity. So Asperger's syndrome, if you heard that, is actually a part of the spectrum, but they are higher functioning autistic individuals. They would have the typical unable eye contact. They would speak in monotone. Um, what they can highly talk about. So they might be autistic, but they have so much information, detailed. They're like talking like a professional in just one specific topic. So they'll be interested. And another example I would state is the son of my piano tuner, as I mentioned earlier. So he's now 31 years old. This autistic child with a mentality of 1.5 year old, but he's able to play like a DVD and just like fast forward to the same exact scene over and over. So he's able to play and play and play and play, or fast forward or rewind, but it will always go on that specific scene, and he can talk on a special subject as well. Vocabulary is you know is very a few words as well. Um, so ASD characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behavior, speech, and nonverbal communication, as I mentioned earlier. And ASD individuals, children, or young adults, or have different ways of learning, moving, or paying attention. As a result of caregivers of children with ASD experience increased levels of burden and poor quality of life, partly due to lack of sleep, I guess. Many caregivers face severe financial crisis, high out-of-pocket healthcare expenses, unemployment. They were from, I think, Illinois. This was like 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, because the children are in the 30s already. They don't have resources. It's not, the special needs. They don't they don't have much information. It's partly in part of the system, but maybe the social workers and the case managers don't know much about that as well. and they have no resources to direct them to. So they actually moved from Illinois to here in Virginia, where I'm living now, because they were because of family support. So they didn't have any assistance with friends or the church over there. So they actually moved. They're not Adventist. So that's one of the thing is, so even when they were here, they were still trying to grasp and finding out resources. Um, so they were spending the piano tutor had like 3 4 jobs just to be able to pay the bills. So healthcare is expenses, and the wife has to quit her job and to full time because they have 2 children that are autistic. Many caregivers experience excessive amount of psychosocial problems ranging from stress, depression, anxiety, isolation. I'll talk about that later. Isolation, restriction of activities. Of course, there are full-time caregivers like 24/7, diminish or decline in health, strain in marital relationships, oftentimes resulting in separation and or divorce. Um, my family tutor said that before it was like 30 to 60%, but now he said research showed that it's like 60 to 90% of families, couples that have children with special needs are separated or divorced. So that's very high rate because their time is just so much focused on taking care of their children that they just grow apart. There is no intimacy and unable to meet each other needs because they're focused on their children. So I'm not surprised. Actually, the couple that is relative of mine by marriage um, is not by blood, but by marriage. Is that what happened with them? Is that they grew apart, but they have a child with Down syndrome. So they said even if they don't talk to each other, they don't like each other, they have to stay together because of the child. But that's an exception, actually. What's keeping them together, they said, is their faith in God. This one is Seventh Day Adventist. Let's move on to the next one. Slide number 31. What is like for a person with autism? There's challenges to social interaction, socialization. Um, Common signs and symptoms with autism that affect their behavior and communication, as I mentioned earlier, little eye contact or avoiding eye contact during conversation, distinct reaction to lights and loud noises, very specific in interest, focusing obsessively on a single subject, repeating words or phrases, echolalia is the medical term for that, repetitive motions or behaviors such as spinning, engaging in self-harming or self-destructive behaviors. That's also seen in Down syndrome. Banging their heads repeatedly, failing to interpret social cues correctly, nonverbal communication or delayed language development, lack of interest in socializing with others, intense reaction to minor changes. This is what I'm talking about. This number one strategy they do with ASD, autism spectrum disorders, is communication boards. Some children with ASD with nonverbal autism may have difficulty speaking. So communication boards enable nonverbal children to express themselves by pointing or gesturing at images, which might be photographs, illustration, or symbols. Communication boards can be highly sophisticated pieces of technology. It could be something you just made from home, or devices or as simple as bulletin boards. But there are other sophisticated stuff, such like Tobii Dynavox. So it's a brand of assistive technology that include devices and software to help people with communication and physical disabilities interact with their computers and their environment. So with my piano tuner, he was and the one with the Down syndrome. So it's like an iPad, so computer that they use eye tracking also and other technologies to enable users to control devices with their eyes or hands. Because they have problems with speaking, so that they're not able to express and not able to communicate. So they use just like the hands and the eyes, very sophisticated. The pros with communication boards are simple and they're easy to make and use. And the cons with electronic communication boards, like the Dynavox iPads, can be potentially expensive and inaccessible. So if it's not covered by your private insurance, but I believe the government will have some assistance with that as well. Strategy number two, using a picture exchange communication system, PEX. This is similar to a communication board. A picture exchange communication system uses images to represent thoughts and requests. Through the use of PEX, children with ASD can quickly and efficiently communicate specific needs, whether to their therapists, their family members, or others. Slide number 33, picture exchange communications or PECs. The pros is that it has been shown to promote small to moderate gains in communication, according to some research. Additionally, other studies have noted that the first three stages of PECs are effective to highly effective in teaching children to request preferred items. So PECs may also help children successfully adjust to speech generating devices. So cons with PECs, picture exchange. Unlike a homemade communication board, a PECs may offer a limited range of images for children to use from. Um, so strategy number three, that is using speech generating devices or SGDs. This is a piece of equipment that produces speech for the user, either through alphabet keys or visual symbols. Various studies shown that SGDs can be effective, particularly for children and young adults aged 3 to 20 years old. Pros with SGDs are generally convenient and easy to use. Cons, speech generating devices can be costly as well, which might limit accessibility. Slide number 34, strategy number 4, communication strategies that they do for autism. Is using sign language. Learning American Sign Language can open tremendous doors for children with ASD, facilitating communication with a wide community of ADL users. Uh, so sign language offers children a way of expressing themselves quickly and in detail, but the negative side of that is that sign language can be challenging to master and may not be accessible to children who have limited manual dexterity. That's limited use of their hands and fingers. It is important to therapists to weigh the potential drawbacks against the potential benefits when deciding on what's appropriate type of technology to use for your child. Moving on to slide number 35. Communication boards, sign language, speech generating devices, and picture exchange communication systems can all empower a child with autism to express more effectively. How we are going to deal with the autism behavior management, because there are behaviors that needs to be managed. So strategy number one is applied behavior analysis or ABA therapy. It's one of the most widely used therapies for children with autism and other developmental disorders that includes Down syndrome. It's designed to help children on the spectrum develop social and emotional skills because they have problems with communicating. So the purpose of ABA therapy is to help the children and maybe if they're on that higher age, adults, to manage and modify certain behaviors. It's making it easier to overcome social challenges and avoid disruptions to learning. So ABA, applied behavior analysis, utilizes positive reinforcement to teach and promote skills in specific domains of functioning such as social skills, emotional skills, communication abilities, academic and learning skills, motor dexterity, and also hygiene and self-care habits. We'll be talking more about that, and grooming. Tailored to their individual needs, it is an interpersonal therapy because your child will be working with a therapist. And the principle is based on learning. Another goal of the ABA therapy is to help children function as independently and successfully as possible. And with the applied behavior analysis, this is very beneficial because their intelligence quotient will really go higher than. So if they started with 1.5-year-old, like with my relative by marriage, um, she's got a son with Down syndrome, and she said, if I passed away, I'm just hoping that my son, because the son is down, like the mental capacity is between ages 3 and 4. He said if he can only reach at least 7 to 8, then she will be comfortable that he will survive in life even without her if she goes away first. Um, Slide number 36. Applied behavior analysis therapy helps children on autism spectrum by increasing the social abilities like completing tasks, or communicating and learning new skills. Um, Learning new skills is very important because that they would need that to be able to take care of them, like especially grooming and hygiene, stuff like that. ABA therapy also helps implement maintenance behavior like self-control and self-regulation. Remember, they can be so upset that even the most petty of the things, they can blow it up, and they would react really like the world has ended. Another thing with ABI therapy, they're teaching them to transfer learned behaviors to new environments. So they might be behaving certain way like this at home, and they're very much controlled. But when you take them to school, they might not be able to carry that skill or in the community or in public. So I had incidents when this mother told me that the child was very in a restaurant disruptive, and they were not ashamed of their child, but it was disruptive to the other people who were in the restaurant. So the ABA would help them do that to self control and self regulate. ABA also modifying the learning environment to challenge them in certain scenarios. And I think this would involve, one example would be the bathroom use. It's different at home. Um, with at home they can fully undress in the toilet and sit down, but in the school they cannot fully undress. They just have to put their pants down on the knee, or and also when there's a urinal, they don't have to undress in the urinal, so they only have to unsit, so stuff like that. So with the applied behavior analysis, they will develop the skills, and they will also be able to differentiate. Am I at home? Should I be undressing, or should I just be pulling my pants down when they're in school? Okay. Um, there's also ABA, applied behavior analysis therapy, reducing negative behaviors like self-harm, because it does exist. Um, so these children, I think, out of frustration, partly, that they would start, banging their heads, or do some other stuff that will harm themselves. I think one of those 7 families that interviewed, the child was harming himself some way because she talked about some blood and stuff like that. Impact of applied behavior analysis therapy and help. It helps children on the spectrum to adapt to social scenarios that they may not understand. As again mentioned, applied behavior uses positive reinforcement. When a child in the ABA therapy completes a task correctly or reaches a goal behavior, there is a reward. So studies show that when a person receives something of personal value following a behavior, not just even with autistic children, even with us, they are more likely to repeat the behavior if they receive a reward. Over time, applied behavior analysis therapy helps to instill those desired behaviors in your child. So they would learn to repeat behaviors that are acceptable and to stop those that's not acceptable. Moving on, slide number 37, behavior and consequence. Just as good behaviors are rewarded, negative behaviors are discouraged. So applied behavior analysis helps your child to make the connection between what happens before and after a behavior. For example, if the teacher asks your student to clean up toys, your child responds in one of two ways. If they begin cleaning up the toys, the behavior is rewarded. So that's positive consequence. And your child will eventually realize that. It might be 2 to 3 years, because that's, I think, the length time that they recommend applied behavior analysis. And it should be like 20 to 45 hours in a week, every week, and in the span of 2 to 3 years. So they will be able to learn what's bad behavior and something that's socially acceptable. So if they yell, throw a tantrum, or refuse, the behavior in response to being asked to clean up their toys, the behavior is ignored. It's met with a negative consequence. Now I'm gonna talk about this ignored. So ignored with applied behavior analysis and with dealing with autistic children, you should not display emotions that will make them more confused, because they don't know why when you're angry, or they will make them more angry as well. So you cannot yell or shout and show irritation. So you just ignore it. So negative behaviors are often met by the teacher or the therapist. So teacher would be if they're in a school situation, if they're already in school. Therapist would be the one-to-one interpersonal therapy. Is not responding to your child's negative behavior. So until your child stops or indicates a willingness to cooperate with the command, there is no reward. Over time, your child will be able to make connections between what is socially acceptable and what is not. The goal of applied behavior analysis is for the desired behaviors to follow your child into the real world with a better understanding. So, these are my notes now. With a better understanding of social do's and don'ts, your child is better prepared for social situations at school, at events, and with family. The next slide is slide number 38, pros of applied behavior analysis. It's a personalized plan. The therapy looks different for each person, for each child. Um, so if it's an older adult, the spectrum, so it will be a younger adult. So individual goals are set based on what your child struggles with the most. So it's, one program will not be applied, might not be applicable for your child. So during these individual therapy sessions, the practitioner can adapt to your child's needs during that day, when they're during that session. Broad application, this can be applied with depression, of course, with autistic spectrum disorder, because they struggle to understand social cues and engage with others, and how to engage with others. So this is the positive application with autism. It's also applicable with ADHD. The trouble with ADHD is that they have trouble focusing and staying still. So unlike autism, where the struggle is understanding social cues and how to engage with others, social skills, the trouble with ADHD is focusing and staying still. But it's what it's telling here in this section is that applied behavior analysis is applicable to this. And as I mentioned, also with Down syndrome, ABA therapy. Obsessive compulsive disorder, so this could be an adult. Fears and phobias, adult. Issues with anger management, both child in the spectrum and even for elderly people. Um, Older adult, I mean. Nowadays, we're not using elderly because they said it's not politically correct, and it can be demeaning when you use the word elderly. And severe anxiety, so ADHD, severe anxiety with children and adults as well. ABA therapy can also be helpful for adults, as I mentioned, with autism and other behavioral disorders. Moving on, slide 39. It just got proven results. They will have gain in language. They will have more vocabulary. They're able to communicate their needs more. They will have increased intellectual abilities. And with the ABA therapy, I have seen this a lot with friends and children of friends and my distant relative, that they develop skills for day-to-day living and social abilities as well. The cons of applied behavior, some people say, this is like training a dog or animals, and they don't believe that children should have a reward and consequence system for social behavior. But we do what's best for children wherever they can benefit, and this ABA really therapy is enabling them to function as they get older and develop independence. Slide number 40, I already did that. Oh, strategy number two that they use with autism to manage the behavior is relationship development intervention. This is to manage, again, the behaviors of autism. We discussed ABA already. This is number two. Relationship development intervention, or RDI, is a form of behavioral therapy that specifically emphasizes social behaviors such as taking turns with other children. So this is how they learn to take turns if they undergo through relationship development intervention therapy. Learning to interpret body language and facial expressions. So your child in the spectrum would know if you don't like something, because they will pick up on your facial expression if you don't like it or if you're happy with what they're doing. And improving eye contact with others, because the spectrum, that's a typical with them. They have no less. Number 42, strategy number 3, sensory integration therapy. So while ADA therapy focuses on reinforcing desired behaviors, and the RDI, the relationship development intervention, focuses on social behaviors. Sensory integration therapy is a clinic based approach that focuses on the occupational therapy child relationship. When you say occupation, I put my notes there. When you say occupational therapy, even with the adults, they deal with hands. Physical therapy is the legs. Sometimes they work together. Sometimes the occupational therapists would make you walk as well, but actually occupational is on the hands. So sensory integration therapy is done by occupational therapists, and it uses play-based sensory motor activities. So it has to do a lot with the hands to address sensory motor factors specific to the child to improve their ability to process and integrate sensation. So what are the senses? We have touch, smell, taste, sight, and hearing. So sensory integration therapy is to help children learn to use all their senses together, as the senses that I mentioned: touch, smell, taste, and sight, and hearing, as well as senses related to body movement. So this occupational therapy can improve challenging behavior and can help with other autistic characteristics, such as difficulties with play. At some point they have to be, I know they like to be by themselves, but at some point they have to be social. So they need this center integration therapy, and they're playing with other children. Slide number 43. What is the idea behind the sensory integration therapy for autistic children? Most people experience events that stimulate more than one sense at the same time. For example, when we read the book, we see the words, we hear the pages turning, we feel the book in our hands. We might even smell the book if it's dusty or if it's old. So these are my notes now. So we take in this varied sensory information, and then we combine it to get a clear understanding of the world around us. With autistic children, that can be difficult. So autistic children can have difficulties combining sensory information in this way. So the idea of sensory integration therapy is to use physical activities and exercises to help children learn to interpret and use sensory information more effectively. And I use an example with feeding babies. For example, here, babies smelling food as they bring it to their mouth, tasting the food and feeling the texture of the food. So what does sensory integration therapy involve? It involves with the assessment of the child, of course, what their specific needs are by an occupational therapist. The therapist then plans and conducts a program that includes activities to stimulate sensory responses from the child, in particular responses that has to do with balance and physical movement. Because again, as mentioned, children within the spectrum have problems with their balance, and which might include things like swinging, bouncing, or climbing. So actually, this is one of the symptoms that you would suspect your child has, is the spectrum. If they will be like, uh, how do you call that? They will be like, I lost words. They will be, so when they walk, they'll be hitting stuff. like that. They will be hitting stuff that they have poor balance, and they will be just barging and banging into objects, stuff like that. Sensor integration therapy is designed to be a part of wider program that also include communication, behavior, and educational therapies. Moving on, slide number 44. How do I know if my child has sensory processing disorder? Here's what I've been telling you earlier. Signs of sensory processing disorder includes sudden mood swings and strange behavior, like kids with sensory issues might have avoid bright lights or loud noises. This is the one I was just saying. Run around, crashing into things. So that's the right word. And throwing tantrums or appear clumsy. So they would really benefit with the sensory integration therapy. Parent education, training, support, and involvement. See, here's my notes again. If your child is having sensory integration therapy, you do some activities at home as part of the program. So the occupational therapists prepare a written plan and teach you techniques to how to use it at home. So they will teach you, but then you will reinforce that the therapy, the treatment at home. And these are my just some of my references. I cannot put all of them here. And this is pretty much new 2020, 2019. Uh, Now let's talk about how to take care of the caregivers of with autism. So the key to be a strong caregiver, caregiving is not just a labor of love. It's very demanding. For lack of time, I won't be discussing much of that. Self-care for caregivers. It's important for caregivers to remember to prioritize their own well-being as well. Without intentional self-care, you don't take care of yourself, the demands and pressures of caregiving can become overwhelming, sometimes leading to burnout. So I have squeezed in my small notes here. It says squeeze in G's marital strife. So if you don't pay attention to yourself, remember you have a spouse and you have other children. So I remember I mentioned earlier that there's a lot of divorce now. It's and separation 60 to 90%, really alarming. So you have to take care of. So otherwise, you'll be growing apart, and you might be living together, and again, that would pose another difficulty in caregiving if the child is only living with one parent. So it's very important that you pay attention to yourself as well, because you signs of burnout is you being you other children, your spouse might tell you you're being more irritable, and you cannot be like shouting at your child with special needs. So you really need the time out, because that's not healthy for the child, and especially for you as well. So prioritize your own needs in certain situations. So my title here now is we're now not on the child, we're talking about you as the caregiver. Caregivers may find themselves placing their loved ones' needs above their own, but this can come at a cost of your own physical and mental health. We see this happen when access to resources or support from sources outside the family are inadequate or hard to find. You might not be able to find help from your relatives because they looking at you being overwhelmed. They don't want to be a part of that. They might not want to be a part of that stressful situation. So you really have to take care of yourself if you're not getting that help from relatives. In the case of my piano tuner, actually, their family was very helpful. So they moved from Illinois and they moved here to Virginia because they were getting that time off from themselves because the families were pitching in. Um, there is no shame in taking time for yourself and prioritizing. These are my notes now. And prioritizing time to meet your own needs. Being a caregiver is a huge part of your identity, but by finding time for self care, you will build the resilience and confidence needed to care for others. Don't look at it as being selfish, that you are putting your needs ahead of your autistic loved one. Reframe that thought. That means what taking time off means what? Reinforcing your ability to put your best foot forward for them. You cannot continue taking care of your child when you're irritable. You might end up hurting them physically when you are overwhelmed, and you don't want that. In the busy routine of caregiving, it's important to set aside each time, each day, whether in the morning or at night, to focus on yourself. This could involve taking a nap. Literature would say meditation, and I don't want to put it here because we don't do like mantra and stuff like that because you don't want to invite evil spirits. I put it here in my notes: prayer and devotion. I didn't put meditation, or simply enjoying a cup of tea. So you need a time off. The goal is what? To curve out that very special moments to allow you to recharge. Embrace time apart. Stepping away from your routine can feel stepping away from your child or loved one, and this can be what difficult for you because you might not trust the one who's left at home because you know that you are delivering best care, but you don't trust others. But you need to step away uh, because they have. Okay. However, taking breaks is crucial not only for your benefit but for the one with special. I'm now on slide 55. It's not only crucial for the benefit for the one you are taking care of, but also other members of your family. I've seen this the 7 families that I have interviewed. I say they put the example husband, wife, other children. The other children were complaining that they are being neglected, and the husband, and in the other case was the wife was being neglected. So um, they were crampy, irritable, shouting. Again, you don't want that. And then again, the divorce and separation. Move on. Next slide, 56. Don't hesitate to take a break. Arranging for alternate care so you both can have some time apart is crucial, even if it's just a short walk. These are my notes now again, so that's why it's long. A quiet dinner with your spouse or a short time night out with your girlfriends. These moments can be incredibly restorative. It's restorative because what happened? This restorative word is used a lot in older adults. We do stuff so that older adults will not decline, their dementia will not progress. But it says restorative because what? If you are burned out, you will decline also mentally and physically. Encouraging your autistic loved one to engage in activities they enjoy during absence can enrich their experience. So they need to be separated from you as well. You cannot be always a stage mother, cannot always be mothering because being apart from you, what will foster them independence? Because you won't be there, with so much stress, lack of sleep, you might pass away ahead of your child. You might have a cardiac arrest or something like that. So you really need to teach them in some form of independence so they can function in the world without you. And in school as well, because you won't be there at school. So taking apart from them a time off, it will help alleviate any of your guilt that you have for stepping away for a few hours. Stepping away, embracing the time apart is essential for both you as the caregiver and for your child, as they would lead to renewed energy when you reconnect. So if you did take time, you might not realize it, but people will see that if you take time off when you come back to your child, you will be what? You will be more patient. You will be more caring. You won't be as irritable as when you left. Enrolling your loved one with special needs is in a daily programs or activities at school or community can be helpful. It will free you some time so you can spend time for yourself, and you'll be able to complete daily tasks such as cleaning the house, housekeeping, laundry. You'll be able to sit down and pay your bills without interruption. These day programs can also enrich your loved one's life. And I put here another one example: senior center. So I have a senior center where I volunteer since 2008. So that's for like 70 years. So they have this senior program would be similar to senior other centers for children with development disabilities. And in my case, in my county, they have this for from Monday to Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So your children will be able to learn a lot of skills there. They will do arts and craft. In the case of the older residents they have. They will have lectures, they'll have music, they'll have exercises and field trips. And I'm sure they will have field trips. I'm very sure of that. So, because this is seen in the senior center, so this will, your children with special needs will have field trips definitely, because that's visually stimulating as well, and the experience will be very enriching for them. And these day programs will give the child or adults with special needs an opportunity to become more independent. And I put here again, put example of G's fear. Yeah, I talked to her about that. She fears that if she passes away, her son will not be able to survive the real world. And this will also give you the opportunity of your child or your young adult with special needs to meet new people and broaden their experience. Your child's therapy, social worker, case manager, local child services, and autism resource guide can help you find autism-friendly recreational or respite options in your area. And I will talk about this specific for Sacramento area in a few seconds. Lastly, build a support network for yourself. Caring for a person with autism often means navigating a world that doesn't understand their unique needs. This can feel isolate. This can make you feel for you isolating, especially when everyday activities like from grocery shopping trips to family gatherings turn into complex logistic challenges that feel impossible to take on for you. Caregivers find themselves increasingly isolated. In the case of my relative by marriage, um, because the son, in the church, he doesn't feel like going to church. Um, and also, they have not been receiving invitations because their child is disrupted. And this makes her feel isolated. Um, okay, I have the resources. Val can give it to you. I don't have to go through that. But okay, specific to Sacramento, you have your Department of Developmental Services. I researched it. It's in your backyard. There's the website there. So this is a place where they do research if you want more information. But they have virtual support groups. This is in Sacramento. And they also have educational programs and videos on disabilities and autism for individuals and parents. This is what you need. I have their number here on the screen. Um, so in this in this specific government agency, they have information and tools related to autism for self-advocates, families, caregivers, direct support professionals, providers, and other partners. You as a parent, you are actually going to be a specialist because you are the ones finding out all these resources. Actually, the wife of my piano tuner, she quit her job, but while she's taking care of these two autistic children, she actually got certified. I don't know. I think she was became certified social worker or something like that because she got so much information that she's able now to help other families who are dealing with children with special needs. Um, Again, all of that. And then you have UCP of Sacramento and Northern California. I put their address here and their telephone number. You can reach them also, and they have the website. They have I think the only thing they provide, they might have more, but in my research, I only found out that this UCP of Sacramento and Northern California have adult day programs for adults with developmental disabilities. It might be the same to what I have here, which starts at 10 a.m. and ends at 2 p.m., but that will, help you get time off, and your child will experience the world as well and will gain a little independence. I also have here Sacramento Autistic Spectrum and Special Needs. I highlighted the Special Needs Alliance because it's not just for autistic. You can get help from them for also for Down syndrome, for Asperger, which is a higher functioning autism. I have their contact information here. Services is free of charge, but they ask for voluntary donations. So the services they provide, the Sacramento Autistic Spectrum Disorder and Special Needs Alliance, is case management. What they do is they provide services to guide family each step of the way. through raising your special needs child. They have advocacy. Their service assist families obtaining rights and the right for children for education, disability accommodation, government services, regional centers, and employment and other areas. Maybe employment, no, maybe not so much for you, but employment for a higher functioning um, ASD. Um, Contact information for caregiver support. This IHHSS actually, I don't have to time discuss this, but the government will actually, if you call this one, the government will train you or your family members, and you will get paid. I think the rate is from 16 to like $24. You will get $24 if you have more training. But this will, I don't think they provide the training, but they'll direct you to private entities that provide caregiving training. But if you apply for this IHSS, it stands for something, but we don't have the time. But this will actually pay you as a parent or your family members to be a caregiver. I have here California Caregiver Resource Centers through that. And I put VA caregiver support here because later on we'll be discussing about older adults. And by the way, the problems with Down syndrome and autism, developmental problems are the same. Their needs, whether it be toileting, home, school, are the same. So the resources are almost the same as well. I put this VA, Veterans Administration, this for all the adults. Now, your local county programs might have various county level programs that's not provided by or funded by federal, by the government, but some private and some foundations. Okay, let's moving on. Common challenges among older adults continued. We have cognitive decline, memory loss, difficulty with thinking and reasoning, and dementia are common concerns. Well, some actually of the memory loss is brought by you have so much medications. That's why you have brain fog. So actually, um, the lesser medication an older person has, they will have better quality of life. Their mind will be clearer. Um, there's a difference with, we that specialize in geriatrics think differently on how we manage a situation as well. Um, so we're not so much into so much medication like a pill for everything, because each one pill already has a side effect. Now you have like several pills, 3 pages of pills, they all interact with each other. Now with the advent of epic computer, it should have been caught, but still some medications are not good with other medication, much more so with um, alcohol. If you are on any medication, you should not be on any alcohol. And I've worked in nursing home in the hospital where doctors put there may have a glass of wine every night and stuff like that. They should know better, because the alcohol would either potentate a medication or will actually diminish the effect, the therapeutic effect of the medication. And sometimes it will actually just blow up the symptoms. So the reason why they have that written as an order is not because it has medical benefits, it's for patient satisfaction. They want their customers to be satisfied at the expense of their detriment, at the expense of their health, well being. Um, and that's not coming from me, it's coming from the doctors themselves. Okay. Um, Depression, mental health issues, including depression, also prevalent among other adults and can be underdiagnosed and undertreated, can lead to feelings of isolation and loneliness, which can negatively impact mental and physical health. Well, I can tell you in the Western culture over here, when you kick out your children at the age of 18, what do you expect? they grow, stay away from you. So a lot of the elderly people that I've seen are estranged. We have residents that were with us for 10, 11 years. The only time you saw their children was at the time of death, celebration of life, or the grandchildren who just live an hour away, who are medical doctors, some even specialty in gerontology. Uh, Grandchildren are social workers, can't even come and see their grandmother. And this grandmother and the grandfather were paying for their education. So I think a lot of social isolation and loneliness is because of the culture, you know. So so a lot of estrangement. Financial constraints, many older adults are financial challenges which can affect their ability to access healthcare and maintain a good quality of life. I'm gonna say something in here. In America, you shouldn't be have financial constraints because all people should have Medicare or Medicaid. Whoever is managing them and cashing their checks, you know, should be providing good care. And even if they're, you know, under the poverty line, there's still auxiliary grants. There are small mom and pop assisted living facilities that would take as little money as you can get and would still give you good quality of care. So this financial constraints should not be a reason why older folks should not get the the best care they needed. Just question who's managing their money, who's cashing their pensions and stuff like that. And there's also SSI. You know about that. SSI, by the way, if you have children with special needs, they're automatically enrolled in SSI. They can actually get a check even if they haven't worked. The disability is actually one of the criteria to get a social security check. Um, yeah, so caregiver burden, family members who provide care for older adults can experience stress and burnout. I put here add also their own health issues. Yeah, so the caregivers, they're burdened sometimes because the caregivers have their own medical issues. Elder abuse is neglect is an abuse. So if they're neglected, we have people who are nurses out there, social workers. If you signs of abuse, you need to be reporting. Um, because you're under reporter. Adult Protective Services is the one that protects. You report your those that neglected. The version of funds. So the abuse, the version of funds is an abuse. So if you see somebody who worked all their life and they should be receiving pension and check, but they have no access to health care and you know their deplorable living conditions. So one of the remedies might be you know cashing their checks and not spending it for their health care as well. I've talked about well a lot of supplements also magnesium, potassium, calcium, iron, stuff like that. With magnesium and potassium, that those levels have to be checked. Even vitamin D levels be checked. So magnesium affects your heart. You have to take it every day without checking the levels. That's probably what's causing your chest pains. You probably have abnormal rhythms, and you will probably have a heart attack because of taking too much magnesium and potassium. So those have to be checked. The levels have to be put to check. Calcium as well. Iron can be constipating as well. I speak at the senior center since 2008. I've seen a lot of them that had to have surgery because they were so much constipated with that iron thing. So with iron, you should be taking fibers. We manage constipation differently. People who specialize in gerontology, we're not so much into medicine. Just put fiber. I work. I have a registered dietitian to be a registered dietitian at the hospital as well. And she told me that a lot of the fruits that starts with letter P are a lot of fiber and that will take care of the constipation. So anything that like oranges, you can see fiber, pineapples, peaches, pear, uh, prunes is overused. We have Q&A anyway. Wellness checkup. I don't know how big are the counties in Sacramento, but in my county where I live, we had some good uh, social workers before who were visiting old people at home who have no relatives or strange. They were just doing wellness checkup to see how their conditions. And actually, I had received a lot of them as emergency placement because their conditions were just found by very conscious. Respite, you want to do respite, that you have to go through regulations and licensing. I don't know you know about that, but somebody if you that you want somebody to like relieve somebody with special care needs, they need to be trained how to take care of the not just the high fuel members from your organization that wants to relieve somebody who has special need care child has to be trained. What if you are away and then you're left with somebody who's untrained? So I know you need to do that. You can actually work if you want to do a respite. You can actually work with some existing facilities, and I don't know how you're going to do about that, but you need to go through regulation and licensing, and most of all, training for your sitters, for your caregivers. Um, they need to be able to how to manage aggressive behavior. I know you have a good heart, you want to relieve somebody, but how are you gonna dealing with aggressive behaviors? Hospice is underutilized. They're very good at taking care. It doesn't mean that they to qualify for hospice, they should be like actively dying within 6 months, but they're not doing Medicare is telling them now that the person has to be every 2 months. The good thing with hospice, so they manage the symptoms at home. They don't have to be um, sent to the hospital. So we at the facility manage them under hospice. Hospice provides for the incontinence supplies, so the family don't have to pay for that. It's through Medicare. Another thing with hospice, if somebody dies, even nurses were not supposed in the facility pronounce their death. But if they're under hospice, you don't have to call the doctor and have the doctor come in here and pronounce the person dead. With under hospice, very helpful in dealing with stress. And then the hospice will just communicate with the doctor, but they can actually pronounce it. So that's just one of the benefits. From the Bible. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. So when the Lord comes, it will be heaven. There will be no more death. There will be no more suffering. There will be no more caregiver burdens, overburdened caregivers. And God bless.
So that was a lot of information. um, Valerie's, yeah, there is question and answer. So if anyone has somebody think, Jasmine can help with the microphone. If there is somebody that has a question. Mm-hmm.
See? Coming. Yeah. Coming, coming, coming. I'm so sorry. I got you walking way back here. One of the things, a comment I would like to make is if you notice that the importance of self care, uh, either way you go, if you're taking care of a special needs child or older adult, but you got to take care of yourself too. And the best way I think it is like if you have a support group of friends where you can go around and talk about the situation and they'll understand and give you their advice. That'll help. Another thing is too that because we know you love the person that you're taking care of, is that you understand that and you know you have to get away sometimes. You just have to get away so you can breathe, let's say, and get a change of scenery. Cause I don't care even if you can do all things and you get tired of that. So you actually need someone that you can go to. So I think that's one of the main things I get out of the presentation is that the commonality of taking care of yourself and providing good for them is that you definitely get away from the situation so you can get a fresh look at it.
Now, on the same note, seeing as Brother Chief has brought up that aspect of getting away from taking care of your loved one for a while as a caregiver, I think this is where the church needs to come in, where we can say, hey, I can be at your house for an hour or 2 hours while you do this, that, and the other, or maybe shopping, or maybe I can just help you do dishes so you can just have a break.
And I think the biggest ones are those people that have nursing credentials. You know, you got a lot of people that do CNA, you know, right? Yeah, a lot of CNA. They understand about temperature fluctuation, stuff like that, and they'll be more apt to work with you on a limited time basis. I think those would be the ones that you get, because I know that you're gonna want special care, but sometimes it's just not. How want to say it? Not advantageous to get you a RN to come by your house or a LPN to come, but you can get a CNA, a person that maybe has some time off that don't mind, and the church will be a good place if we could find those. Just my suggestion.
Amen. Thank you. Anybody else?
Okay, we thank everyone for coming together, even with the technical issues and everything. We really are thankful for your support. You already heard this morning that there are a lot of things that are coming on, and now we are going to have closing prayer. Oh, it's not here. Okay. So, Noah, I guess